Welcome back to another episode of Crypto Hour. Today we have special guest Marc Tasse. He's an investigative and forensic accountant specialized in multi-jurisdictional economic crime and high-profile and sensitive cases related to alleged fraud, bribery, corruption, and money laundering. But I guess I'm not really saying much. Maybe you can tell us more a bit about yourself, Marc. Thank you so much for having us on the show.
Well, I'm the one thanking you to invite me, and I hope that we're going to have some interesting discussions. So, a little bit of background on myself. I'm what we call a CPA, so Certified Professional Accountant, and I did specialize in forensic accounting. So, my area of expertise is mostly dealing with fight against fraud, corruption, and also money laundering. And over the last 25 years, I have worked on some various files, but to be honest with you, everyone always said that they were innocent. They didn't do it. And on the other part, there were some people who were saying that they were guilty. So it always depends on where you stand. And I think that what I came across is different individuals who had a different perception of the same reality. So sometimes there's a clash between people who thinks that what they're doing is right versus people who think it's totally wrong. And most of my career, I would say, I have always spent most of my energy trying to see the difference between compliance and ethics. And I always
Mhm.
say compliance means respecting the letter of the law, while on the other hand, when we talk about ethics, it's respecting the spirit of the law. And between the two,
Yes.
there is what we call the flaws in the law. And there is some people who specialize in using those flaws. Today I will refer to them as the CLO, not for chief legal officer, but for chief loopholes officer. So the chief loopholes
Oh.
officer, the one that always find the loopholes. And you will see in our discussion, I'm always going to say, well, this is what the law actually wants to do. But in
Mhm.
reality, there might be some flaws right now in people that are actually using it. So that's why we need to change the law. So it always came down. So most of my career, at first, I thought that I would actually go after people that were doing bad things. And I realized I'm going after people who are respecting the law, but who are non-ethical. So just to give you an idea. So most of them, when they say we're innocent, it's true. They didn't break the law, but they were not ethical in what they did, which comes
Mhm.
down to about the same thing.
Very interesting perspective on this. And so tell me, you're also a professor. I remember you definitely in university as well. So tell me, how's life as a professor? Any other professional activities that you're involved with these days that keeping you busy?
I'm actually sitting on different advisory board with federal and provincial governments here in Canada, and I also sit on different advisory board internationally with the ISO standards. So I sit on different board. I always bring into the conversation a different angle. Very often, people see things as either black or white. I always try to bring a little sense of gray in everything to say, and as I pointed out before, to say it might be legal, but is it
Mhm.
ethical? And can you live with the fact that it might not be ethical? So that's what I do when I sit on different committees. At university, I teach at the executive MBA program and also the law school. So I have the chance to talk with people that are challenging me right now because you know what? Technology changed so rapidly that very
Mhm.
often my students know more about these schemes and the different strategies that bad people are using than me. Me, I'm reading
Mhm.
about it, I'm trying to understand it, while my students, sometimes they are actually maybe getting involved in some kind of ways without wanting to do it in a bad way, but they know they, they have the know-how. They would be able to do it. So my goal is
Mhm.
to make sure that they will not do it, that they will always stick with ethics way more than just the legal part of it. So
Very
that's
good.
what I've been doing. And to be honest with you, I've been teaching since the last 33 years. And it's fun. I still have as much fun as I used before. And I always tell my students is because I have 33 years of experience teaching, but only 2 years post pandemic. So it's almost like if I started a new career. So I'm all happy. I love it. And I think this is how university professors should always see it, to say, you know what, we don't have more than 2 years of experience. So we should always keep I would say keep at pace with whatever evolution there is, because very often we're using textbooks that were done like
Mhm.
10 years before. But now, how did it
Outdated.
evolve? So, especially with blockchain, cryptocurrency, all these crowdfunding, all these new elements that before we used to never talk about it, because whenever we're talking about money laundering, it was a brown envelope with money into it. That was as easy as that. So it does change. So to me, it's almost like if it's a life learning experience, and I love it. And very often my students come up to me after class or online after class and say, you know what? Hey, when you were talking about that, if you're ever interested in knowing more, I can share with you. So I have a situation that my students share with me some material that I didn't even add when I actually delivered the class. So I like it.
Yeah, very cool. So it's definitely reciprocal in this case.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning goes both ways. And I like the distinction that you made between compliance and ethics, because even in organizations today, people might be compliant on paper, but maybe not acting in the most ethical way, right? So, going on to the next point, in your professional opinion, what kind of effect did the pandemic have on managing risks related to global financial crimes that we're facing today?
I think that with the pandemic, there has been an increase of global risk for sure. There's way more
Mhm.
risk in new ways that we were not used to be dealing with. And these days, we're talking reputational risk. We're still talking about legal risk and financial risk, but the reputational risk is something totally new. And the
Mhm.
reputational risk can actually affect you by you're doing business with representatives or suppliers. Like, for example, if you're talking about to an international company, and you ask them, what is your biggest risk right now? They're going to say the supply chain. And a lot of
Mhm.
people think that supply chain, okay, well, am I going to have enough material? And am I going to have it on time? No, it's about in your supply chain. The person you're dealing with, your supplier, is he involved in human trafficking, modern slavery, force work? So those are things that, and these days, and also, what about if one of your supplier is on the list of Russian sanction corporation? Are you still going to do business with them or not? And there's a lot of ethical decision that comes into account too. So in terms of risk, the matrix that we were using for risk has changed, and now we're
Mhm.
talking about new risk that is involved that involve new technology. And it's not everyone that really understand the technology. It's easy to go around and do some name dropping about blockchain and cryptocurrency. It looks cool, but if you don't know how it works and you don't know the limit of it, then you
Mhm.
are exposing yourself to a risk. So very often I say the biggest risk is if you have people around you that don't know what they're doing but pretend
Mhm.
to. Those
Mhm.
That's one big risk, because with cryptos, it's evolving, it's changing very rapidly. So if someone is just talking about something that he heard about 2 years ago when he went to a conference, well, you're already obsolete. So talk about the future conference, talk about the subject that will be. And this is what I tell a lot of my students and some of my friends. I say, whenever you look when you want to learn something about a specific area, well, look at the conferences that are upcoming and look at what
Mhm.
will be the material that will be covered during the conference. So that will tell you what is the hot topics. But don't look back at past presentation and try to
Mhm.
learn from it, because it evolves so rapidly. So you're going to learn stuff that will be obsolete. So
It's always looking at the future, always looking to learn
yeah,
going forward. Very nice. And
always anticipate what you don't know much. So that's the best thing to do. Expect the unexpected. So basically, it comes down to that.
that's very interesting. And so, in your opinion, what are the biggest risks, challenges, and opportunities that we're facing today within the traditional structure of the stock markets, for example?
The volatility of the stocks. One day it
Mhm.
might be worth something. A few days later, it will be worth something totally different. When I
Mhm.
first started teaching finance, I was actually teaching all kind of formulas to tell you what should be the market value of a company. You know what?
Mhm.
It all comes down to forget about the calculation. It all comes down to the emotion, to the
Mhm.
anticipation, the perception that people have. Eh, And
Mhm.
as soon as there's an allegation of something going wrong, the market react automatically. They don't wait until there's an investigation and then we find out if there's a conviction or not. No, the market react automatically. And I think that with the new technology that we have right now, the new everything, I would say, not only technology but everything did change so rapidly. So I think that that's the danger. People don't understand totally what's going on, and sometimes they
Mhm.
invest in companies or industry in which they don't fully understand. And same thing with Bitcoin. Everyone wanted to buy Bitcoin because Bitcoin had shown some good results in the past. But I always tell people,
Mhm.
do you buy based on the past or about the future? Because you should be looking at the future. But these
Mhm.
days, it's hard to fully understand what's out there, and there is so much different type of investment opportunities out there on the stock market or on
Right.
different type of market that basically it's almost impossible for someone to fully understand everything. So there's always a risk element of not fully understanding what you're doing and still
Mhm.
making a decision. So I think that's the biggest challenge that we see right now.
Mhm. And with the digitization of the market, if we look at cryptocurrency, for example, paving the way during the pandemic, do you feel that these risks, challenges, and opportunities, would you say they're very different from the traditional market, let's say? Or would you say
Yes,
that they're
yes, I would say
intertwined?
they're no, I would say they're totally different because before that, people would invest on the stock market and say, okay, well, I'm expecting a certain return of, let's say, 15% or 20%. These days,
Mhm.
it's not that. People invest in cryptocurrency and they expect a return of 4, 5, 600%. And I'm always telling them, if you're expecting, like, they think that they're going to invest $1,000 and they're going to have $1 million in about 18 months. I always tell them, like, if it does happen, it's because it's very risky. And I always tell the people, the higher the expected return, the higher the risk. And I think that that's the danger right now with the new cryptocurrency and the and all these different type of investment you can make. People want to have something instantly. They want to become millionaire instantly. Don't tell someone it's going to take them 10 years to become a millionaire. No, they want to be a millionaire tomorrow. That's what they want to do.
Mhm.
So that's why they're so vulnerable for fraudsters, because they know exactly. They're not going to tell them you're going to make a 20% return for the next 5 years. No, they say, you know what, you're going to double your investment in about 2 years. And everyone's all, oh, yes, that's great, that's great. And then it's even more than that. If you invest in this stocks, hey, you're going to double your investment in the next 3 months because we have some like past result to show you. I always say,
Mhm.
well, if that is true, it's very risky. And if it's true, why would they come up to you? Why would they want to make you a millionaire? And I was talking to someone one day and said, you know what? I never get an advice from someone who's not already a millionaire, to tell me how to become a millionaire. so, so basically, it comes down to that, to say the what's in it for you, and what's
Mhm.
my risk, and how comfortable I am to deal with the risk, and then decide what's the return that you think that you should be expecting.
I remember studying in university all about corporate governance, structure, and regulation and the importance of it, which brings me to my next question. Do you believe that regulation of the cryptocurrency market will enhance the security, integrity, and reduce the overall amount of financial crimes that are out there?
I love to think so. I love to think
Mhm.
so. I love to think that the regulators fully understand what are the limits of the actual system, what are the
Mhm.
pitfalls, what are the risks, and when they're drafting the laws and having them pass, that they have took into consideration at least everything that is risky right now and should be risky for the next 2 years. I'm not
Mhm.
asking them to to write laws that are going to be good forever. But at least if you can
Mhm.
foresee what's coming on and say, you know what, that's a big risk, might as well make a legislation that would try to mitigate that risk. Because we're always talking about risk mitigation. We're never
Mhm.
talking about eliminating a risk. That's not possible. But you mitigate the risk to an acceptable level. So the legislators right now, what they have to do is to be open-minded, to talk to advisors, to talk to subject matter experts and say,
Mhm.
please tell me the truth. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Don't tell me what will be good to advance your career. Tell me the plain truth. That's what I want to hear. And then if they're able to say, you know what, they actually shook us up and we were out of our comfort zone, then I say, hey, that's great. But if someone just said, yeah, that's right, we wrote new laws because we knew exactly what was going on, then I'm always a little bit skeptical. And I always think that, you know what, it might be true, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, unlike the traditional market, right? I guess I wouldn't say that they're more set in stone, but with the digitization and the transformation that we're facing today, with everyone being online, with purchase transactions and payment transactions being conducted instantaneously and virtually, um, maybe this framework of regulation uh, should, like you said, be a bit more anticipatory and as well more enhanced for the future, giving it a bit of wiggle room to update the laws with more frequency.
Exactly, and it's always to 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 get yourself informed and to investigate what is coming out in the next 2 years. What are they working on that will that have a major effect on our daily activities or what we do, and then from there to say, okay, so if this will be something important, how can we regulate it? How can we actually try to have a framework that
Mhm.
will make it tougher for people, for bad actors who want to actually take advantage of the system? Because whenever you come up with something new, there's always someone who's trying to copycat it and someone who will, on the other hand, try to find a loophole and to use it without you even knowing. So, because
Mhm.
as soon as something is new, you're more vulnerable because you have no reference, you have no benchmark to know, okay, well, is it going as it's supposed to? So
Right.
the fraudsters are smart, and this is what they're looking. They actually are focusing and say, okay, if it's the more complicated it is, the easier it is for
Mhm.
us to take advantage of it.
Right. Very interesting point. Very interesting point. So, in your professional opinion, that being the case, what would be the best approach for governments to take in terms of regulation? And what could be the potential risk factors that they may face?
Well, I think that they need to have advisory board. They need to go on with public consultation to talk to different like key key decision makers in the industry and say, okay, if we were to go ahead with that type of legislation, would you be good with it, or would you want us to change it? And I know what I'm going to say is pretty simple, but I always come back to that. If someone is proposing a change in legislation or to impose new
Mhm.
internal controls, if everyone
Right.
is okay with it and no one complained, it's probably because they found a loophole. They found a way to get around it. If they're really upset, they say, "Oh no, come on!" Then you know that what you're doing is great because there's some people who are scared of what you're doing, and that will change their activities. I agree that if they're scared because what you're saying doesn't make sense, then that's something else. But if you want to go ahead with something and they say, well, come on, if you do that, this will change our industry and it's not going to be as profitable as it was before. Well, I think that should not be a showstopper. That should say, okay,
Mhm.
great. So I am actually putting. So I think what the legislators need to do is to talk, to listen, to share, to get the
Right.
subject matter expert. Just ask them their expertise. Say, hey, we would like to ask you a question. How would you see it? What would you do?
Mhm.
And it's not about hire some people to become public servant and to work full time on it. No, you get the brains, you get the smart people, and you ask them, and you take the people that are out of universities, the beautiful mind, and you tell them, okay, if you were to try to go around with what I'm doing right now, how would you do it? And sometimes you learn a lot to say, geez, we thought we had that angle covered. Now we realize that angle that wasn't covered. So that's
Getting
maybe
a
something to
fresh
reflect on.
perspective from a fresh new grad,
Oh yeah.
always better than maybe a public servant who's been in the industry for 30 years, but isn't getting any sort of
Yeah.
continuity with their work.
Well, if I can share something with you, I'm not going to name universities, but in Canada, there is some universities that actually had some of their graduate approached by criminal organization to hire them
Mm.
because they want them to work for them because they have beautiful minds and they know the new technology and what's coming up. So they are at the highest of their career right now, even though the career is just starting. They
Yeah.
know what criminal organization are looking for, and sometimes these new grads don't even know they work for a criminal organization. They think they
Right.
work for a startup that is trying to get some financing in any kind of way, and they're working on something which will revolutionize the industry, but they're not able to talk about it. And all the time that they think they're doing something for a good deed, sometimes it comes out that it has bad intention. But still, it's a risk to take. But I would say be careful, because very often we thought that criminal organization would be looking for tough people and to scare other people. These days, it's not about that anymore. They don't look for tough people. They look for smart people, people with brains that do understand the new technology, because they need the new technology to continue their illegal operations very often. So for them, it's important to get the new grads, but it's hard for them to go on campus and to recruit those people, because we all know they're a criminal organization. But on the other hand, if they come up as you have someone who's the nominee of a company, and that company is in research and about a new technology as a startup, then at that point it makes it a little more blurred and a little more tougher to really understand the situation, and that's their goal.
Very interesting. So they're diving deep, trying to find people, right at the start of their career, right, fresh new perspectives on technology, to sort of take advantage of their skill sets, their brand new skill sets, for illegal activities. It's really saddening to see. Really
Yes, it
saddening to
is.
see.
It is. But you know what? What is even sadder is when the government don't understand that, and they don't hire those grads with the best brains right now. Like, hire those people. Say, you know what? I'm not going to let the criminal organization hire them. I'm going to hire them to work for me. I'm going to hire them to do some research. I'm going to hire them to really help us understand the challenges of the new technology, because for a lot of people, new technology equal a lot of challenges that they don't understand. But the danger is when they don't understand and they make us believe that they do. That's the danger.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's very true. It's the red tape and bureaucracy. Slows
Yeah.
the process down for the country itself.
And sometimes it's something about the ego. People don't feel good to admit. Like you said, when I started that conversation with you, I said, I learned from my student. A lot of my colleagues don't like that. They say, Mark, then the students are going to say, why are we paying tuition fees if you're learning from us? Well,
Right.
you have to be honest to say, like, I understand the concept, but I don't always understand the technicality. And that's why, which is what makes a conversation great or whatsoever. So the government, the legislation, and the regulatory agencies, they need to be able to understand that they have some strength, but there is some challenge for them, and sometimes they need to get some fresh brains on board in order to tell you really the situation as it is.
Right. So maybe like a fresh, open perspective and transparent conversation with governments need to be had that are not being had today. Very good.
Well,
So
the casinos did understand that a long time ago. They have, for their security, they hire past fraudsters in their casinos. They say, hey, you were able to
really,
commit fraud against us, and now we hire you to be in charge of security. You will tell us how you would do those things. And the same thing with some, like here in Canada, we have a federal police, which is called the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they did hire some of their, well, some people that they had arrested years before because they were hackers. Then they hired them to work for them and to test systems and to make sure that things are protected correctly.
Interesting. I guess productive, but also counterproductive in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
In your professional opinion, has the war between Russia and Ukraine increased or decreased financial crimes throughout Europe and the world, including Canada and the US?
I think okay, a couple of answers to that question. The first part is it did accelerated all the legislation in order to combat money laundering. So here in Canada, in the UK, there has been a push to have to come up with new legislation on which will make it tougher to launder money. Because the big issue we have right now is ultimate beneficial ownership. There's a lot of people that are just trustees or they're just nominees. So you don't know who are the ultimate beneficial owners. So all the sanction against the Russian oligarchs well, it's great, but they're only going to be able to sanction the goods that they know that they own under their name.
Mm.
Because if they
Right.
own it under the name of a nominee, it's going to be tougher and tougher. So there's a lot of layers that need to be going through. So I think it did actually accelerated the the legislative process in order to have a tougher regulation against money
Mm.
laundering. But
Mhm.
I also think that it will just shift the problem from some countries to other countries, because there will
Mm.
always be some countries that are going to be willing to welcome all those investments by the bad people. So, and we already start seeing that there is some countries that says, you know what, if you want to transfer your yacht, your super yacht, I should say, whatever, to our country, we are happy to welcome you. If you want to transfer some of your investment here, we are happy to welcome your investment. So I think it will just shift the picture from what it is right now to what it will be in about 2 years from now. And some country will benefit from it financially. Are they going to benefit from it in terms of being seen as good countries around the world? I don't think so. We're going to see
Mhm.
them as people who took advantage of a situation. But I think it will just change the way that we use to define money laundering.
Mhm. So in essence, some countries, like you're saying, are trying to create like a safe haven for people's monies that are spread around the world,
Yep.
like you
And
mentioned, away
and
from the
some
war.
countries are saying it openly, like we welcome
Mhm.
you. Whatever sanction will be put against you, us, we're not going to apply those sanctions. So,
Mm. I mean, this is also a reputational risk for the country itself that is actually being involved in these sorts of illicit financial activities.
yes, but there are some people, they don't care much about their reputation. They care more about how much money they're making. So, and as I said, I'm not naming any countries, but for some countries, they say, you know what, if we go ahead with accepting what has been proposed to us, well, even though it's non ethical, it's going to actually give us a lot of money that we need. So, and then from
Mm.
there, we'll be able to it will create economic activity in our country. Like Canada, we're not a good reference, like we're seen as the snow washing capital of the world. Why? Because in Canada, it takes 15 minutes to incorporate a company. And it's easier to incorporate a company than to own a library card. And the problem is the fact that you can incorporate a company, you just have to name directors, and that's it. That's all. There's not more due diligence that is being done. So for some people, it became very attractive. So what they did, they created those companies, and then they were purchasing real estate, because they always purchase real estate in countries that is probably quite stable, and the real estate get increased in terms of value. So I heard some people saying, yeah, even though they're laundering their money, we don't care. They're actually participating to the economic activity of the city. We're building new condos, we're building new houses, so it's good for the construction, it's good for the local economy. So some people see it this way. And I also heard some people, I was doing some work internationally with the International Monetary Fund, and some people
Mhm.
were saying, like I heard some economists say, well, corruption is important as long as it
Mm.
is macroeconomically relevant.
Really?
See, yeah, that's the danger sometimes that you
That's
will have
crazy.
with economists. And not that I don't like economists, but it's just that
Mhm.
whenever they go to university, they see things in a macroeconomic way. So for them, if you're talking to them about something, they say, okay, so what's the effect? Is it macroeconomically relevant? If yes, I'm going to do something. If not, I'm going to put my energy on something else. But meanwhile, there's still people that can get away with it. So that's the biggest danger could be if an economist was to write laws. So I'm just joking, but because they would probably say it doesn't really matter. Yeah, there's a loophole, but not everyone will take advantage of it. So we're all good. So see, we just need to be very much aware of. And I was just joking about economists, but the person who told me that was an economist. And after a conversation with him, I could understand why. Because he said, Mark, you're talking to me about corruption, but if it represents like 0.1% of my total portfolio, like I'm going to do something for sure, but maybe not immediately. He came back with the risk matrix. What's the probability that it would happen, and what would be the severity if it was to happen? It was as easy as that.
Jeez. Well, we got to take away these. That's pretty sad. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. This square sort of thinking that some economists may have that could
But
degrade
keep in
the
mind that
economic
whatever we're
system.
discussing today in terms of challenge and risk,
Hmm.
there will always be someone somewhere who will tell you, is it macroeconomically relevant? And even though
Right.
they might not use those exact words, they're
Hmm.
just going to tell you, well, does it really matter? Well, when they say, does it really matter? How do they define? How do they benchmark if it does matter or not? And some people are going to use the macroeconomically relevant theory. Some other people are going to say, well, am I affected? It's as stupid as that.
I guess they're busy with their mathematical equations, Lagrangian formula to maximize utility, rather than focus on the actual big picture. Right?
Yeah,
It's
but
funny.
as I say, it all depends on the training you got and your experience. So for them, what they're telling me was like, hey, that's a very rational way of thinking. And sometimes economists think in a very rational way more than an emotional way. So
Hmm.
some people will say it's great, some people will say it's not. So it all depends.
Hmm. Very cool. Ah, not very cool, but very interesting.
Very dangerous.
Very dangerous. Extremely dangerous. With the ability to track transactions in the crypto market publicly, right, with a blockchain, do you believe that the crypto market will be more effective and efficient than the traditional markets in reducing global financial crimes?
Yes, this will be so useful. And the actually, this is what brings hope for me to say, you know what, with the new technology right now, we're able to keep track, we're able to gather way more information. Years ago, it was a guy like me sitting at a desk like 14, 16 hours a day and going through a lot of information and trying to make up my mind on it. Now it's not that anymore. With the technology, with the data analysis and everything, you don't need to do that. You can actually process so much more data in such a small period of time that it becomes really a useful tool for people that are fighting crimes like me. Where for us, technology is such a great solution to any of our issues that we had before, because now there's tools out there, there's availability, and keep in mind that when it came to cryptocurrency, a lot of people were saying, "Oh my God, let's invest into cryptocurrency because no one can keep track and understand what we're doing." And once
Mhm.
they found out that no, it does actually leave a paper trail, or I should say an audit trail, not a paper trail, but a digital trail. Well, then the value went down because people said, well, no, we were buying it because we thought that we would be totally anonymous. And now you're telling us that there is some. So, according to me, that's kind of weird when you buy something because you say, geez, I want to buy it because no one will ever know about it. And then once you find out that some people might know about it, then you say, you know what, I don't want it anymore. So it's just to
Mhm.
tell you that I do think that yes, it will be helpful in two different ways. One, to help people who are trying to fight money laundering, corruption, or anything like that. And also because it will be dissuasive for the people who wanted to invest for the bad reason.
Mhm. Very interesting points. Very interesting points. And that kind of leads me to my next question as a segue. You mentioned that a lot of cryptocurrencies are being created. A lot of people are entering into the markets, investing into cryptocurrency on a daily basis, right? And cryptocurrency in general, they're being created to solve real world problems, right? What can regulators do today and in the future to authenticate and legitimize tokens to protect consumers like you and me?
Well, I think what they need to do is to write laws that take into consideration the reality of it. And they need to make sure there's no loophole in the law that they're
Mhm.
writing. So before they come up with a new law, they should test it, they should review it, they should actually really reflect on it, just not rush up and do and pass the law because this is something that was very urgent on the agenda of some
Mhm.
politician and it was a hot topic, they had to do something and they say, you know what, as we go along we're going to amend it. That
Mhm.
always scare me when people say we will amend it. I agree that if you did something wrong, might as well amend it. But if you're doing something by saying, you know what, I'm just going to do something like a quick draft, I'm going to go ahead with it. We're going to take the all the glory to have processed something really quick, and if it doesn't work, then we're going to adjust it as it goes. Well, like you don't build the airplane while it's flying, so you cannot do those things, you need to think in advance. And right now, what I think, there's a lot of pressure to say legislate, come up with new regulation, but make sure that you fully understand and don't actually legislate technology that is obsolete. And that's what I'm scared of, is that we're going to be legislating uh, technology that is obsolete, and what is upcoming, we're not going to legislate it yet. We're always going to be catching up. And I think that what they need to do is to really be visionary, to think ahead, to say, you know what, and maybe one thing should be, whenever someone come up with a new type of technology, or you should actually ask for ethics in artificial intelligence development. So
Mm,
whenever we're developing something with artificial intelligence, make sure that it's done in an ethical way. I'll give an example, like a drone can actually save lives, can be able to track someone who's lost somewhere. Drones can save lives, or you can use the drones to for bad reason. So it always depends on the technology. What is your intention? So
mm,
basically, you would legislate the drones to be doing good things, not allowing them to do bad things. So this is what you need to do. The same thing with cryptocurrency, NFT, and all those things. You need to think of, that could be used for good or evil. Let's legislate
mhm.
the evil part.
That's a really interesting point because I actually heard about this specifically. You had, for example, rogue coders within companies, right? Who will start to write up different codes, artificial intelligence, and whatnot. And they program things that, will go against specific people, for example, or will be used against them in a bad way, right? So, with intention to do so.
Yeah, these mad scientists that we saw in past movies, they do exist these days. It's just that they're not dressed like mad scientists. They don't look like mad scientists. They just look like
Mhm.
regular people. Then that's the danger, because the bad people don't look like bad people anymore. They look like
Mhm.
very good people. And that's why we're very vulnerable. So in my field, we always say trust but verify.
Trust
And
but verify.
yeah, trust but verify, listen to the lies and follow the money trail. But
Nice. I like
before
it.
blockchain and stuff like that, we were not able to follow the money trail. Now we're able to do better. So we're happy. We're happy with what is upcoming.
That's very good. That's very good. So we're moving forward in the right direction then.
Yep. Hope so.
You've probably heard
Don't scare
about.
me. Don't tell me I'm totally wrong. I'm joking.
You've probably heard a lot about Bored Ape Yacht Club and celebrities like Justin Bieber, Neymar here in Brazil, just to name a few, that are paving the way for a new market of digital collectibles like art, NFTs. However, there have been several cases of fraudulent art being sold online. In your opinion, what can consumers do in today's day and age to protect themselves from these types of vulnerabilities?
I would say they need to do their research to fully understand what they're buying. Is it something which is authentic? Is it they should be looking at all the fraud there is and what they want to do. So sometimes you
Mhm.
Google, if you want to buy something, Google that name and Google fraud just beside that name, and then you're going to tell you're going to learn how people were able to commit a fraud in that field, or what you're doing, and at least that will give you a start. Then what you also, because you're talking about arts is always something, arts and antiques is always something that has been a predilection for money launderers.
Mhm.
They were actually putting their money everywhere around the world. It's very heavy to carry gold or to carry a briefcase full of cash. But if you have a painting, the painting is very light. And there is something called the Freeport. I don't know if you heard of Freeport, but
I
Freeport
have.
are a different location when they have all those antiques and arts, and they're not moving. So the government's not collecting taxes. It's not moving, and you don't know who's the owner. And then they make a transaction just by saying,
Mhm.
that painting, in, let's say, in the Delaware Freeport, used to belong to me. Now it's going to belong to you. So with NFT, it might be the same thing. So we're going to have to be very careful. And I always say, you know what? If you want to legislate something, you want to regulate, please think like a fraudster. Don't think like a good guy. Think like a bad guy and say, you know what, if I was to do, or a bad girl, think about, if I was to do something wrong, how would I do it? And then take notes. And then make sure you're writing laws that doesn't allow it. It's as simple as that. And usually when I sit on advisory board, this is always what I'm telling them. I say, how many of you think like fraudsters? And they don't want to admit. And I say, well, maybe you're smart and you're just not telling me. But if you were to be honest, think about it. If you do think like a fraudster, you bring an added value to this table. If you don't think like a fraudster, you don't bring an added value. I'm sorry, but like a guy like me, I think like a fraudster all the time. That's why I actually wanted to specialize in that field, because that's inside of me. I'm always thinking like a fraudster, but I have some ethics because of my parents, the people around me always told me, Mark, this is wrong. But I'm always thinking like a fraudster. That's why I'm good to catch fraudsters, because I am like them. It's just that instead of doing something wrong, I prefer doing something good. But I think like them, like I breathe like them, like I know what they're doing, I know what they're thinking. So it's the same thing with NFT. If you want to actually protect yourself, think like someone who would like to take advantage of you, and then do your due diligence, or get the technology that will help you do your due diligence. There is technology out there. I'll give you an example. Interpol with arts. Now they have an application. I don't know if you saw it. It's called Interpol ID art. And you go, you see something, a painting or whatever you want to buy, you scan it, and they will automatically tell you if it's something that was stolen. So Interpol has this great application. So it's the same thing. They did develop it with the current technology. So imagine in 2-3 years from now, there'll even be better technology. So I think there's hope. And I like to think there's hope. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I like to live in this pink world and everything is beautiful.
Oh, there's definitely hope, but this is an interesting point. I mean, if we can apply the same sort of concept to NFTs, it would be interesting to see. You'd have some type of auditing software that will be able to scan, or will be able to say, okay, well, the original IP address for this specific artist comes from here, and they've already gave their digital signature and so on, right? For authentication purposes.
This will be very helpful. To be honest with you, this will be very, very helpful. And it's there. It's called ID-art, A-R-T. And it says capture the art, capture the criminals. So basically that's what it is. So, and as soon as you scan it and you report it, they get your geolocalization, and they know exactly where's the painting. So you don't even have to tell them that they're. As soon as they find out it's a fake, they know exactly where it is.
That's really cool technology, actually. Very leading edge. Excellent. Do you believe that the introduction of the metaverse, you probably heard of the metaverse already, do you think that will open doors for new opportunities of exploration within it?
Totally. I think this is so scary. It's something totally new. It's going to take at least 3 to 5 years for us to fully understand what it means. What are the limitations? This is what you should always focus on. What are the limitations? And how can people take advantage of it? So I would say fraudsters right now, they know way more than me. I don't know about you, but they know way more than me how metaverse work, and they know exactly how it was developed, how it works, and what are the actual limitation to it. They know it, and they take advantage of it already.
I mean, in today's day and age, you could go in to this metaverse and you can purchase digital land, you can purchase properties, you can purchase clothing. I think Wendy's, was it, that created like the first virtual store, so you can actually go in and eat a virtual hamburger.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, because you see, once everything becomes virtual, are you afraid of getting fraud? There will be a fraud against you. You might say, I don't care. I live in my virtual world. It doesn't really affect me because it's only virtual. It's only virtual money. Yeah, but even though it's only virtual money, you had to pay for it at one point. So there will be consequences. At first, people will try to minimize it, and they'll try it. It's like with alcohol or drugs. Even if you're telling them it's bad for you, they will try it. They'll try. Human nature is like that. They want to try and see. So metaverse will be something that will be tried by the well, what I'm happy with is that it will be started. The first users are going to be the new generation, so they understand at least what's going on. The danger is when guys like me are going to try to go into metaverse because we think it's cool. Then we're going to be exposing ourselves to a lot of risk because we don't fully understand what's going on, and we're just like, "Wow, it's cool! Wow, it's virtual." Because we're going to be comparing with what was worse before, while the new generation, they don't know better, so for them they have expectations that are way higher. Me, you put me in metaverse, and just the fact that I can have a virtual burger, I'm all happy. But the new generation is going to say, yeah, so what? So what does the burger taste like? Do I get the taste of it? Do I get the smell? And then they're going to keep on going. So their expectation are going to be
Mhm.
really higher. So that's why it's important to surround yourself within your organization with the new generation, because they have expectation. The older generation were just like amazed, like, wow, unbelievable. I would have never thought of it. No, if you're just in admiration on something, you're vulnerable. You should never be in admiration. You should always be looking at it and say, okay, do I fully understand? What's the little loophole that I might not have actually understood already? And how can I prevent it from happening? This is what should be looked at, not going like the wow, it's so beautiful.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Can regulators control what actually takes place within the limits of this new virtual universe? Do you think it's ever
And
going to get to that point?
the perfect world, I would say yes. And a realistic world, I would say no. Because people are going to say, well, come on, the government cannot regulate everything, and it's an intrusion of our privacy, and we don't want Big Brother to oversee everything we're doing. So every time that the legislators are trying to do something, people say, well, okay, it's Big Brother who actually want to get in and try to gather as much information as possible on me, and there is a supervision, like the government should not get involved in those things. So it's the big dilemma: should the government get involved or not? And so, unfortunately, I do think that we're always going to be lagging. We're always going to be a little bit behind and trying to do some catch up. We're going to play catch up.
Mhm. And do you actually believe that maybe there might be virtual task forces that are put into place to monitor the metaverse for potential crimes, fraud, and other types of criminal activities within the actual metaverse? And to what
Probably.
extent? Mhm.
Yeah, probably. I do think that. Sorry, I cut you off. You were asking to what
No.
extent? Okay,
To what
so
extent do you think?
I think that there will be
Mhm.
a task force like that. But once again, it's going to be a non-for-profit one, which is run by good people who believe in. They're going to be advocate of doing the right thing and to use the
Right.
technology to the best of it. But the thing is, are they going to be able to spend as much time as they want, because they're going to have to earn a living, and for them this will
Mhm.
be doing something they're going to be doing pro bono, or there might be a task force that will be set up by, and then by who, which government, like who
Mhm.
will have the right to oversees what's going on in metaverse, or is it going to be like a special task force which regroup people from different countries. But then the bigger you make it, the more complicated you make it, and the more slower you make it too. What is great with criminals is that they can make a decision very quickly. This is, well, I'm saying great, not in like I would like to be a criminal, but great in a way that these people are very agile. They react very, very rapidly. While on the other end, legislators, they would love to be agile and to react rapidly, but they're stuck into legislation and different process, and it's a little bit longer. And then you have those pressure groups that, because one thing that people forget sometimes is that bad people, they hire the lobbyists to promote what they want. Like they have the
Yeah.
money to pay lobbyists, and the lobbyists are saying, yeah, well, you see, even though what you want to do with your legislation is great, but on the other hand, don't you think it may actually have this side effect that would not be as positive as you think? So it's always a challenge.
It's always a challenge, definitely. And I guess to finalize today, I wanted to ask you for some recommendations on a Netflix to watch in terms of things that
Oh,
you'd see in the financial crime world that might be interesting to our viewers.
well, the most popular one is always Ozark. People love Ozark. A lot of people did learn what was money laundering from Ozark, even though it doesn't fully explain how money laundering works. And there is some stuff they do in Ozark that could not work, unfortunately, but or fortunately, I should say. Well, depends the way you want to see it. But Ozark gives you a good idea of what to what what to look for. And what I like about Ozark is the personality of the characters. They're nice
Yeah.
people. People get attached to them. People find those people nice. They're kind of sad at the end when they get caught. Well, you know what? It's normal. They should get caught. Marty is the guy who launder money. So Marty should have bad things happening to him and get caught. He should not get away with murder. Kind of like so. I think that the danger is that sometimes people get attached but at least when we look at Ozark, it's not the traditional gangster movie. When you will look at the person, you would say, man, I would not trust that guy and I wouldn't want to come across him. When you look at Marty, Marty is a good guy. You would like to meet with Marty and to sit down and have a beer with Marty. And this is why Marty is able to launder money because people don't expect him to be a bad person. People trust him, and that's always the danger. So whenever you look at a movie, try to understand the character and in the end say, why do I like this character? And you're going to say, because he looked like a good guy. Well, there you go. You were vulnerable because you would have done business with a bad person only because he looked like a good guy. And I always tell people, whenever you're going to invest your money, act like if you were blind. Don't look at the person. Don't get affected by his personality. Get affected by what the person is saying. Because in communication, they always say what you will remember 7% of it is the words, 38% is the tone of the voice, and 55% is the body language. And people are going to try to take advantage of you, are going to use the body language and the tone of the voice. The words, they don't say things that are different, but they get you into this stress element that you say, okay, okay, I will. And it's the same thing with the new technology, the Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies, the NFT. There will always be some people who are going to try to take advantage of it. They're going to try to put pressure on you. And I always
Yeah.
tell people, time is on your side. They always remember that. You don't need to make such a quick decision. Whoever wants you to make a quick decision is because there's probably a reason why. And sometimes that
Mhm.
reason is not always good unless
Right.
you are a procrastinator and now it's time to, to finally deliver. But if you're not a procrastinator and people are trying to put pressure on you, there might be a weird reason for it. And I usually like to tell people whenever you're going to be facing an opportunity, you're going to facing an ethical dilemma out of which you understand technology, you know the other people don't, and you might take advantage of it and get away with it. I would say ask yourself one question: can I do the time for what I'm going to do? So I always say, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. So it's as easy as that because these days it's not about if you're going to get caught, it's when.
Mhm.
And once you get caught, are you going to be able to live with the fact that your reputation has been tarnished? And are the people around you, your family, the people you care about, are they going to be proud of you? Are they going to be able to live with the fact that you did something wrong? That's the big question to ask yourself. And so if you understand things that people don't with the new technology, share it, make it used for something good. Don't try to get a bad use of it because, as I say, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
That's right. That's right. Would mom and pops approve? Yes or no? No?
Exactly.
Probably shouldn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. It always comes down to that. Keep it
It's
simple.
funny. But excellent perspectives today. I've been enlightened, learned a lot today from you. I feel smarter already. So I really wanted to thank you today for your participation on Crypto Hour. And hopefully in the near future, we'll have you back. Just wanted to let our subscribers and our fans know to like this video, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already, and activate notifications to receive videos right in your feed. So again, thanks, Marc, for your participation today, and we'll look forward to working with you again soon.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm delighted to have been invited. To me, it's an honor, and I like to talk about the new things because very often when we're older, there are people always asking us about the past. Explain to us the past. At least now I have the chance to talk about the future, so it's always great. Thank you
That's
very
right.
much.
Always looking forward. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much,
Take
Marc.
care.
Take care. We'll see you soon.